Hello everyone, Pentuf here today for a new video in which we are gonna talk a lot and not about the current replay talking about B2, but we're gonna talk about a subject I wanted to present on the channel for a very long time, the preferential matchmaking. That's why, by the way, I'm playing the B2 because you might know it or not, but the B2 will never encounter tier 5s because of the preferential matchmaking. So first of all, before going to the point, let's give a definition about the preferential matchmaking. It's simple. A preferential matchmaking tank is a tank that will always be top tier. With this tank, for example, I can't face tier 5s. So most of the tanks in the game are not concerned. I think it's quite rare. You have the B2, and I don't honestly know another tank that has these abilities. I think it's only for the B2. But you know what? Correct me in the comments if there are other tanks concerned, because I truly don't know which tanks are concerned, because most of the time it's low tiers, and as I'm not playing low tiers very often, except for some videos or streams, I'm not aware of that. So that's exactly what is the preferential matchmaking. And for some of you who might be playing World of Tanks PC, the PC version, you should know that Wargaming got rid of this system in World of Tanks PC. And here in this video, I'm going to try to prove you that it's a good thing, and we should have it more often on some tanks on World of Tanks Blitz. So, of course, World of Tanks PC removed it because they have too many tanks, but they just didn't remove it. They also buffed all the tanks before removing it, because they knew these tanks needed to be buffed to be able to be competitive at tier 9 if it's a tier 8, or a tier 8 if it's a tier 7, etc, etc. So what's the point of the preferential matchmaking? At least in my opinion, it's to make underperforming tanks that are average at best when they are top tier, but mediocre when they are bottom tier. It's to give them the chance to be effective on the battlefield. For example, if we talk a bit about the B2 here, with the B2, if you are not top tier, what are you gonna do against tier 5s? I mean, the main point of the B2 is to have an incredibly good armor and a derp gun that will probably bounce a lot if you don't use APCRs on high armor tanks. But if you put it at tier 5, you lose all your special skills. I mean, at tier 5 you don't have armor, and you don't have an enough good gun to be able to penetrate your opponents. So therefore, if this tank could meet tier 5s, it would be completely bullshit and useless. That's why Wargaming decided to put preferential matchmaking, and that's exactly the point of this. It's to make these tanks great when they are against tanks of their own tier, but mediocre when they face bigger tiers. So there are a couple of good sides and downsides to this kind of stuff. So we're gonna try to review some of them. For example, let's talk first about the good sides. I want to talk about the good sides. It's better for my argumentation. But let's say it will allow underperforming tanks to do well in battle. I already talked about it, so I'm not gonna take another example. But if the B2 was facing tier 5, it would be completely useless. Also, it increases the chances of players getting these tanks, because most of the time, when I remember when Wargaming sold the B2 for it was maybe 1 month ago, or maybe a bit less, they never talked, or maybe I'm wrong, I don't want to throw a rock at Wargaming, but I don't think they advertised the tank saying, hey, this tank has a preferential matchmaking, it will never face tier 5s. Because I guarantee you that if Wargaming advertised these kind of tanks as having preferential matchmaking, a lot more people will get it. That's logic that they don't want to do that, because they don't want to overflow the tier 4 matchmaking with B2, because this tank is extremely good for tier 4. So maybe that's why they decided not to advertise it like that. But I think for some tanks, if they manage to maybe put a preferential matchmaking on some tanks that are already in the game, maybe it will allow these tanks to be played more often instead of these missiles bullshit, for example. So also we can say that it joins a bit what I just said, but it could allow forgotten tanks to brighten again. For example, when I talk about preferential matchmaking, I always wonder why the KV5 doesn't have one. And I'm pretty sure if the KV5 had a preferential matchmaking, because truly it deserves it. I mean, the KV5 is completely not broken. You can destroy it easily if you know how to aim. It's not a big deal. But if they managed to put a preferential matchmaking on the KV5, a lot of people are gonna take out the dust of their KV5 that is sitting there in the garage, and they will play it again. Me the first. At least that's what I think. Maybe you can totally disagree with what I'm saying here. I'm just giving my opinion. But you know what? Talking about opinion, let's talk about the downsides. The downsides of the tank. In my opinion, okay, preferential matchmaking seems to be a good idea. But in this case, why not do like they did in World of Tank PC and you can just nerf and buff the tanks that are underperforming. For example, they could maybe buff a bit the Type 59, maybe a bit the reload or the KV5 armor on the cupolas, even if they already did that in the past, but I don't think it's enough. So that's the first thing. Also, maybe a problem for it's gonna join what I said about the B2 not being advertised as a preferential matchmaking tank. It will increase Seal Club. If we do that on low tiers, at least. If you do that for a tier 8, it's not really a big deal, because at tier 8 people are supposed, that's a big that's a big if, but people are supposed to know how to play. Therefore, a tier 8 with preferential matchmaking is not going to break anything in the game. It's going to be a good thing. But imagine if your tier 4 battles were filled with B2, these tank I'm playing right now. You're gonna see this game is an ace tanker, and you're gonna see it's complete bullshit. I'm gonna run over the whole team without struggling a lot. I'm gonna struggle at a moment because someone was firing gold at me, but usually if nobody plays gold against you, you're gonna destroy them. But let's talk about my point before talking about the replay. So I was saying it's gonna increase seal clubbing, because of course if you advertise the B2 as a great tank having a preferential matchmaking, everybody's gonna jump on it, and if everybody jumps on a B2 and everybody plays a B2 on a regular basis, tier 4 is gonna be unplayable. That's why I think Wargaming decided not to advertise it as a preferential matchmaking tank. But yeah, anyway, also let's say that I think that the main problem with this idea is that it's gonna be unfair. It's gonna be unfair for other tanks that are not gonna have a preferential matchmaking. But let's be honest, we can say that the KV5, for example, needs a preferential matchmaking. But do you really see a WZ121 GFT having a preferential matchmaking? No, because the tank is completely broken already. That's why I think it will help a bit to calibrate different kind of tanks. For example, if you can put the WZ121 GFT at tier 9, which clearly it could belong, at least you will make a favor to tanks that can't outperform the WZ by doing this preferential matchmaking thing. And it will allow to diversify the gameplay, because usually now, even if you just go in ratings, for example, if you go in ratings, you're gonna see at tier 8 a lot of WZ121 GFT, a lot of Scorpion G, etc, etc. And if you want to play your KV5 in ratings, you're gonna get completely destroyed. If you want to play your KV5 in regular battles, you're gonna be destroyed as well. Honestly, that would be great to see something like that in World of Tank Blitz. So now, is it a good thing? Is it a good thing? I'm in favor of this kind of things, preferential matchmaking. I think it could help a lot of tanks out there being played more often. But let's say that it's good at two conditions. The first one is, if we need the preferential matchmaking to be done on underperforming tanks and underperforming tanks only. For example, I'm taking the same example over and over again because that's the only one I have in mind, but if you have any others, feel free to tell me in the comments which tanks you think should have a preferential matchmaking. But the KV5 is clearly underperforming. If you check the gun, I mean, okay, Wargaming did something about the gun by adding another one that has a better penetration, but you lose your reload to get this penetration. And I think they should just go for a better, if they want to buff it without giving a preferential matchmaking, just buff the penetration and don't make the player choose between penetration and reload. That's the first thing. And also, one important thing when you do a preferential matchmaking on a tank is to make sure that this tank is not gonna break the tier it's playing on. Because even if a tank is completely normal with, for example, tier 4, so tanks of its tier, if it becomes completely broken to make it face bottom tier tanks for it, it's gonna be a problem, because everybody's gonna run the same tank and it's gonna do the same problems over and over. It's gonna do the same as when Wargaming is releasing completely broken tanks, for example T92E1, everybody's playing it and everybody's complaining about it at the same time. So that was my rant for preferential matchmaking. I really do hope Wargaming is gonna put them back in the game. I would like to have your opinion on this. Do you think preferential matchmaking should make a comeback in World of Tanks Blitz or not? Feel free to subscribe, like and share, and see you soon, probably tonight for a stream, and if not, see you soon for a new video. Pantouf, over.